Okay, good morning all of you. Let's get started. Here there is a question. For all problems, Rayleigh-Bridge method, modified Galerkin will give same results. In assignment 10 and 12 results are not matching. Why they are not matching, you please check it, okay? If they are not matching, you should be able to answer why they are not matching. You should be able to answer why they are not matching, okay? Because if you follow this procedure, wherever the only difference is wherever weight function is there in modified Galerkin method, at that location you are going to have variation of the approximate solution, okay? And another thing is wherever essential boundary condition is specified at that location, variation of quantity is equal to 0. Based on that, after you apply integration by parts, that term which has variation of approximate solution evaluated at the location where essential boundary condition is specified, that may vanish, which may not happen in case of modified Galerkin method, but it gets taken care at the time of assembly of global equation system. Okay, please note that when something is not matching, you should be able to observe carefully and then try to find the reason. Okay, so that is the learning process. I cannot say why it is not matching unless you solve it and see where where you are deviating. You just closely compare both, and then you will understand where you are deviating. Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Anyway, I think the students who are taking who have not attempted so far assignment problem, it's going to be a serious issue in your understanding of this course. So at least today you start attempting the assignment problem. Anyway, it's too late, okay? Because you may not be able to meet the Monday deadline. Anyway, please attempt it. If you already did it, then it's fine. So now let's come back to this lecture for today. So this is what we looked at. In yesterday's class, we looked at how to develop element equations for a bar which is undergoing axial deformation. Okay? And finally, the equation system that we developed that is valid, or that is for a special case where Young's modulus and cross-sectional area are constant, and also the distributed load is not function of x, it's also constant. Under that conditions, this is the equation system. This is the element equations for such kind of case where E and A are constants, Q is constant. If these are not constant, suppose if these are not constants, you need to go back here. Wherever you are doing integration, you need to go back here and then substitute E as a function of x, A as function of x, and do this integration. Okay? So whatever equation that you are seeing, or this one, whatever this k is equal to this quantity is a special case where E and A are constant. So keep that in mind. And also here, Q is constant. Assuming Q is constant, then this integral simplifies to this one. So if Q is not constant, you need to do that integration. And if you see, if you happen to visit any of these modern, immediately I can give an example of modern airports, and you can see the column is, or any member, these columns are not, or any axially loaded member is not going to have constant cross-sectional area. Okay, you can have varying cross-sectional area along the length of the member. Such kind of case, if you want to analyze such kind of case which is undergoing axial deformation, then you need to do this integration, putting A inside the integral. So be careful on that. And for the particular case where E, A are constant and Q is constant, the element equation looks like this. And based on this, you need to assemble the element equations, get the global equation system, apply the essential boundary conditions, and then solve the equation system for the unknowns, and then go back to each element. Once you get the nodal values, go back to each element and try to find strain in that element, stress in that element, force in that element. And once you get these forces, you don't need to ask whether your answer is correct or not. You can, based on your basic mechanics, you can check whether that force is going to make sense or not. Okay, we will see that in wherever we left in yesterday's problem. If we further go into that problem, then you will understand what I'm saying. So this is the example that is taken, a stepped bar problem. Okay, and it is subjected to axial load, and based on whatever element equations that you develop, you can write the equation system for this problem. And yesterday I also emphasized here the units are in MKS units, so you don't need to convert this into newtons. Okay, you can still work with these units and be consistent. And now, suppose you are given this kind of example or this kind of problem, and how to select the elements, whether you need to use 2 elements in this region, 2 elements in this region. If you want, you can try doing it, but usually 1 element is enough. 1 element is enough in each of the, for this kind of problem, for this axial deformation problem, 1 element is good enough to give the accurate result. Okay, so since this is a stepped bar, the cross-sectional area over which the element is having constant cross-sectional area, that region is taken as an element. So element 1 is taken from here to here, and the bottom key point is the extreme point for that particular portion, that is denoted with or that is taken as node 1, and the top key point is taken as node 2. Similarly, since the cross-sectional area is constant in this portion, this entire thing is taken as 1 element, and this key point here is numbered as 3, and this is taken as first element, this is taken as second element. So 2 elements, 3 nodes. And finally, the equation system that you get, it depends on the number of nodes, and at each node, how many unknowns are there. At each node, you have only 1 displacement to be determined. The displacement, axial deformation is what is you are interested. So at each node, the unknown is the displacement in the axial direction. So there are 3 nodes, and each node 1 unknown is there, so 3 unknowns. So finally, equation system is going to be 3 by 3. Okay, that you need to keep in mind. So now you need to assemble the element equations for this element by plugging in appropriate values into this equation. Please note that in the stepped bar problem, there is no body force, so this vector is going to vanish. And depending on the loads that are applied in particular element, in element 1 you don't have F1 and F2, this vector is also going to be 0. In element 2 you have F1 is equal to 0, F2 is nothing but second node of element 2. Second node of element 2, load is applied 1 unit in the upward direction. 1 unit in the upward direction. Please note that this coordinate system is assumed to be positive if it is going up. Okay, if it is going up, coordinate system is assumed to be positive. So force is acting in the positive direction of coordinate system, which is x-axis. So this force is taken as +1. Okay, so with all that, I hope you have taken this figure in yesterday's class. With all that, you can write the element equations. Element equation for element 1, element equation for element 2, and global equation system is going to be of size 3 by 3. and where element 1 contribution goes into element 1. Element 1 is connecting nodes 1 and 2. Element 1 is connecting nodes 1 and 2. So element 1 contribution goes into, listen carefully, element 1 contribution goes into 1 and 2 rows and columns of global matrix, global equation system. Element 1 is connecting nodes 1 and 2. Element 1 is connecting nodes 1 and 2. This node 1 is the first node of this element. Node 2 is the second node of this element. Because we are assuming x-axis to go in the upward direction. Our axis is going in the upward direction. So this is the first node, this is the second node. So element 1 is connecting nodes 1 and 2. So the contribution of element 1 into the global equation system is going to be into the locations 1, 2 rows and columns. 1 and 2 rows and columns. So element 1 contribution comes in here. And element 1 contribution into the force vector comes in here. Element 1, what is the force? It's 0, 0. That comes in here. And element 2 is connecting nodes 2 and 3. So element 2 contribution goes into 2 and 3 rows and columns here. And element 2 load contribution goes into 2 and 3 locations. And please see here, 1 is taken, positive +1, it is +1. Why it is +1? Because the applied force is acting in the direction of the axis that we assume. Suppose if this load is compressive load, if this load is, instead of load being applied like this, if it is acting towards this stepped bar, then it's going to be -1. Here it's going to be -1. Okay, so with all that explanation, you can easily write the global equation system. Global equation system looks like this. So this is where we stopped. This is where we stopped in yesterday's class. So any questions here? So global equation system we obtained. Now we need to substitute essential boundary condition. Essential boundary condition we need to substitute, which is this node 1 is fixed. So u1 is equal to 0. So you substitute that, u1 is equal to 0. And wherever essential boundary conditions are specified, in the force vector at that location, unknown reaction is going to be developed. So that when you plug in 0 here, the corresponding location in the force vector, you are going to have a reaction that is denoted with R1. Why it is R1? Because to emphasize that it is a reaction corresponding to the first node. Okay. Now you have no unknowns on one side, unknowns on one side. You do the partitioning. How you are going to do the partitioning? Let me draw that so that it will be clear to you. So you need to do partitioning like this. You do partitioning like this, and then you can see here. Here this is unknown. Okay, this is unknown. So instead of that, these two unknowns can be determined. These two unknowns can be determined based on this. So this -4 0 multiplied by 0 plus this matrix 6 -2 6 multiplied by u2 u3 is equal to 0 1. So that is what is written here. So here directly you can write this one. So now you can solve this equation to get u1 u2. And determine u1 u2. and you solve it, and you use consistent units. You substitute everything in kilograms, centimeters. So finally, the displacements that you get U2, U3 are going to be in centimeters. And what about U1? U1 is, you already applied U1 is equal to 0. So U1 is 0, U2 is this value, U3 is this value. How do you know that this solution is correct or not? How do you know this solution is correct or not? Take this U2, U3 and determine R1. You substitute U2, U3 here and multiply 4 multiplied by 0 minus 4 multiplied by U2 value and try to find what is R1. Okay? R1, if you determine R1, R1 is 1. You applied load. You applied load 2 kgs. So reaction is also 2 kgs. Any questions here? Actually, there is a printing mistake here. R1 is minus 1. R1 is minus 1. You please make a note. Anyway, it is this equation is correct. So if you solve this, R1 is equal to minus 1. That is making sense. You see the problem? You applied 1 kg, you are pulling it, and so the reaction here on this side is going to be same as this 1 kg, but acting in the opposite direction, in the downward direction. Our convention is upward direction is positive, so it's acting in the downward direction. So R1 is going to be negative. This is the negative 1. You please correct it. So this is how you can cross check whether whatever result you got is correct or not. You don't need to ask somebody, or you don't need to look for the answer. You can do self check. So now you got, okay, our solution is correct, but what we did, we just determined the nodal values. We know U1 is 0, U2, U3 just now we determined, but I'm interested in what is the strain in this element 1, what is strain in element 2, what is stress in element 1, what is stress in element 2, what is force in element 1, what is force in element 2. So all that. Now you got the nodal values. You already noted. I told you to make a note of these equations. Okay. So now for each element you substitute what is its first node displacement here, second node displacement here, what is the length of the element. You get strain in that element. Once you get strain, you can determine stress and you can determine axial force. So that is what is done here. Please take a note of it. If you have any questions, please let me know. Here multiplication sign is missing. Okay, here multiplication sign is missing. You please correct that. Any questions? No questions? Anyway, this is direct application. This problem is direct application of this. This particular problem is direct application of these equations that we developed. And please note that these equations are for this kind of element. What is this element? Let's closely see this. This element is undergoing axial deformation. Okay, and this is the first node, this is the second node, and the displacement at this node is U1, displacement at this node is U2, and x1 is the nodal coordinate of this, and x2 is the nodal coordinate of second node. F1 is the force at node 1, F2 is the force at node 2, and element element axis is shown here, x-axis is shown here, and this you can say an axis which is passing through the centroid of the element, which is coinciding with the centroidal axis of the element. Centroidal axis of the element, axial, the bar element, this axis is going. Okay, so now let's assume this element instead of being in this direction, or instead of being in the vertical direction. So what I'm saying is, let me draw it, then you will understand. So instead of element being either horizontal, or instead of element being in the vertical direction, let's say the element is now inclined. Element is inclined. So your x-axis is going to be always, this x-axis is always going to be along the axis of this element. Okay, x-axis is always going to be along the axis of this element. If it is horizontal, this element is horizontal, x-axis is going to be in this direction. Okay, let me put it in presentation mode. Analysis of 2D trusses. 2D truss is nothing but plane truss. So whatever element you have seen, you see lot of information is there here. You please take a note of it. Okay, please take a note of this information. I'm going to wait for a minute. You please take a note of this figure quickly. Okay, so this is a bar element. This is a bar element. Okay, and local axis which is going through, which is coinciding with the centroidal axis of this bar element, that is this x-axis. Okay, and whatever F1, F2 in the previous figure, that is replaced with P1, P2. P1 is nothing but the load which is acting in the axial direction at node 1. P2 is nothing but the load which is acting in the axial direction of x at node 2. Okay, what about displacement here? Displacement at this node. Okay, local displacement is going to be there, that is d1. Displacement at node in the direction of axis of the bar, that is d1. Displacement at node 2 in the axis of bar is d2. Okay, but please note that this bar is inclined, Actually, in this figure, displacements are shown. In this figure, forces are shown. First figure shows the displacement. Second figure shows the forces. Because if you want to show everything in the same figure, it's going to be a lot of information and it's going to be cumbersome, and it will not be clear. That's why two figures are drawn, one showing the displacements, another showing the forces. Now this bar is inclined with respect to what? Inclined with respect to horizontal axis as well as vertical axis. So another coordinate system is defined, X, capital X, capital Y. Capital X, capital Y coordinate system is defined, which is like, you can call it like a global axis, global coordinate system. And the axis which is coinciding with the bar element axis, that is denoted with small x, an axis which is perpendicular to small x, that is denoted with y. This y axis is not going to have any significance, but still for completeness this is denoted. This small x, small y axis is what is called local coordinate system. So you have global coordinate system denoted with capital X, capital Y. Local axis system denoted with small x, small y. Okay? Any questions? Now, if that is clear, what is D1? D1 is the displacement at node 1 along small x axis. D2 is the displacement at node 2 along small x axis. But if I resolve this displacement, if D1 if I resolve it with respect to the global axis, so this D1 gets resolved into U1 and V1 in the global coordinate system. D2 is going to get resolved into U2, V2 in the global coordinate system. Okay? Similarly, P1 is going to get resolved into F1x, F1y, F1 capital X, F1 capital Y. You have to be very clear on that. P2 is going to get resolved into F2x, F2y. When you see in a different axis, it gets resolved like that. And now, if that is clear, whatever equation system that you have seen, whatever element equations that you developed, that element equations are the element equations in the x-axis, small x-axis. So that small x-axis is nothing but local coordinate system. So this element equations, and there are no body forces. So for this element, for this kind of element in the local coordinate system, the element equations looks like this. Any questions here? So you can say this is the element equation. This is element equation for this element in the local coordinate system. That's why this is denoted with K. Earlier you denoted this with K, subscript L. Means this is a local stiffness matrix. This is a local displacement vector. This is local force vector. Please take a note of this equation. If you know D1, and if you know the orientation of this member with respect to the global axis, let's say angle between the small x and capital X is alpha. if you know D1, you can easily find what is U1, U2. Sorry, U1, V1. You can easily find what is U1, V1. You need to resolve D1 along the horizontal direction using this alpha and D1 in the vertical direction. What is its component? Using that alpha. So is this clear? So now we need to find that relation. What is the relation between D1 and U1, V1, D2 and U2, V2? Similarly, what is the relationship between P1, F1, X, F1Y, P2, F2X, F2Y? What is that relation? You need to go back to your coordinate geometry. Please note that the displacements and forces are going to get resolved in the same manner as your coordinate system. Okay, so if you have a coordinate system, local coordinate system denoted with small x, small y, which is inclined with respect to the global coordinate system, you from your coordinate geometry, which you must have studied in your high school mathematics, what is the relationship between small x, small y, capital X, capital Y? What is the relationship between small x, small y, capital X, capital Y? It's coordinate transformation. Okay, once you know the angle which this small x-axis makes with the global capital X-axis, you can easily write that relation. Okay, you please recall that. Immediately, if you are unable to recall it, then it is given, that relation is given for you here. Transformation between local and global coordinate system. Hope you recall this relation. Alpha is, you should be very careful with this alpha, how it is defined. Alpha is the angle between local x-axis and global x-axis. Then only this is the relation. If alpha is the angle between local x-axis and global y-axis, wherever alpha is there in this relation, you need to replace that with 90 minus alpha. So you should be very careful how alpha is defined. So that's why you need to also note this one. Alpha is angle from global x-axis to the local x-axis, measured in counterclockwise direction. What is meant by counterclockwise direction? In the opposite direction to which your clock is going to rotate. Clock is going to rotate in this direction, like this. You are measuring the angle in the counterclockwise direction, from global x-axis to the local x-axis. So this is the relation. And who is going to give me this alpha? How I am going to get this alpha? Or how I am going to get this cosine alpha and sine alpha? Okay. So that you can see this member orientation. And easily you can find it out. If the length of this member, if this length of this axial member is known, let's say that is capital L is the length of this member. What is sine alpha? Sine alpha is nothing but opposites. You complete this triangle. Maybe I will draw for here. You complete that triangle. If this length of this element is L, how do we get the length of the element? If you know the coordinate of this point, node 1 in the global coordinate system, coordinate of this point, second node in the global coordinate system, you can easily find what is the length of this element. And once you get length of this element, and then what is this dimension? What is this side? It is nothing but y2 minus y1. And this dimension, what is that? It is x2 minus x1. So you can easily find what is sine alpha and cosine alpha and length of the member. So all that information is given here. Any questions here? And also you need to be very careful here. One more thing. Here I am writing y2 minus y1. What is y2? What is y2? Y2 is the second node of that particular element. And what is y1? Y1 is first node of that particular element. The y coordinate of the global y coordinate of first node of that element. So when you write y1, y2, you should also be careful which node you are defining as 1 and which node you are defining as 2. So you should be very careful, okay? If you define, let's say if you define this as node 2 and this as node 1, if you define this as node 2 and this as node 1, then your local x-axis is going to be going in the opposite direction. Then your alpha is going to be, from here all the way to here in the counterclockwise direction. In the counterclockwise direction with respect to the global local x-axis. So you should be very careful how you are defining your node 1, node 2, which is your node 1, node 2, all that. Anyway, all that you will experience when you are solving a problem, okay? So you please take a note of this one. So now I got sine alpha and cosine alpha based on the global coordinates of the nodes and length of the element. And now you see this one. This is this relation here. Small x-axis, capital Y, sorry, small x-axis, small y-axis, capital x-axis, capital y-axis. Please note that in reality, I don't have this this small y-axis. I defined it for completeness here. I don't require it actually. So the relation is small x is equal to capital X cosine alpha plus capital Y sine alpha. Okay, or instead of writing that cosine cos alpha sine alpha, you write this as C. You write this as S. This is C, S, minus S, C in a compact way. So small x is capital C multiplied by capital X plus capital S multiplied by capital Y. Please note that displacements and forces are also going to get transformed in the same manner. So if this relationship is valid for coordinate transformation, it is also valid for force transformation, displacement transformation. So if you agree with that, D1 can be written like this. D1 is C times U1, S times V1. Okay? And this I want to write D1, D2 together. That's why I'm writing it. It is 0 times. It is not going to have any contribution because 0 is there. Similarly, D2 is C times U2 plus S times V2. Any questions here in this relation? This is the relationship between the local displacement vector and global displacement vector. And that is compactly written like this. DL is the local displacement vector. This matrix is denoted with this T because it is transforming. This is like a transformation matrix. T and D is this one. And please note that this T transformation matrix is orthogonal matrix. You know what is orthogonal matrix? Anybody? What is orthogonal matrix? What is orthogonal matrix? All of you either came through JEE or GATE exam. You don't know what is orthogonal matrix? T is orthogonal matrix. You can verify that. What is meant by orthogonal matrix? Orthogonal matrix is a matrix where transpose is same as inverse. Transpose of the matrix is same as inverse of the matrix. If you don't believe, you check it. How do you check it? TT transpose, if it is equal to identity matrix, then T transpose is same as T inverse. Anyway, please pay attention here. I don't know whether you are following or not. I don't see any response. So this transformation matrix is orthogonal matrix. You keep that in mind. Okay. So what is the inverse relation? What is the inverse relation? If I know if I know this global displacement vector, how do I get the local displacement vector? Sorry, if I know the local displacement vector, how do I get the global displacement vector? I need to just transpose. T transpose DL is equal to D. Is it clear? T transpose is same as T inverse. So DL is equal to T transpose D, and D is equal to T transpose DL. This relation, inverse of this relation is D is equal to T transpose DL. Please take a note of it. And the displacements, the way the displacement got transformed, the forces are going to get transformed in the same manner. Forces are also going to get transformed in the same manner. That you keep in mind. Okay. Now we have this relation KLDL is equal to RL. KLDL is equal to RL. Just now you noted DL is equal to T times D. So you substitute here. DL is equal to, you need to note in your notebook. Understand? I'm not going to do that. You please make a note in your notebook. KLDL is equal to RL. So now replace DL with T times D. T times D. Also RL is going to be T times R. R is nothing but this R vector is nothing but F1x, F1y, F2x, F2y written in a column format. And RL is nothing but P1, P2. So KL times T times D is equal to T times R. And multiply both sides of this, both sides of that equation with T transpose. T transpose, let me tell that, you make a note of it. Okay. T transpose KL T D is equal to T transpose T R. Okay. Anyway, so if you do all that, this is what I'm saying. RL is equal to KL times DL, and DL is T times D, multiplying on both sides with T transpose, multiplying on both sides with T transpose RL. T transpose RL is going to be R, global load vector, is equal to T transpose KLT times global displacement vector. So all that, whatever explanation that I gave, it is given here. So this one, T transpose KLT, that is defined as K. That is defined as K. And D is nothing but U1, U2, V1, V2. R is nothing but F1x, F2y, sorry, F1x, F1y, F2x, F2y. So D is nothing but this vector, R is nothing but this vector, and T you know. So you can find what is T transpose. KL is EA divided by L in brackets 1 minus 1 minus 1 1. So T is what? T here is 2 rows 4 columns. T is 2 rows 4 columns. T transpose is going to be 4 rows 2 columns. K is 2 by 2 matrix, and T is 2 by 4. So you are multiplying 4 by 2, 2 by 2, 2 by 4. So finally you are going to get 4 by 4 equation system. So if you do that multiplication, this is what you get. This is the global equation system. This is the equation system for that axial or the bar element. Equation for bar element in the global coordinate system. So whatever equation you have written 2 by 2 equation, when you see in the global coordinate system, which is a 2-dimensional global coordinate system, okay, that's why it's written 2D trusses. And if you include the third coordinate, how it's going to transform, that we'll see once you understand this. So this is the global equation system for a bar element in 2-dimensional case, or this is like, you can say, a plane truss element. For plane truss element, equation system is this. Using this equation system or this equation, you assemble the element equation for all the elements in a particular problem, assemble the global equation system, and get the these nodal values and convert them into the local values. Once you convert them into the local values, you know how to find strain, stress, axial force. Please note that when you solve this equation system, you get U1, V1, U2, V2 like that. Displacements in the global coordinate system. But to calculate strain, stress, we require displacement in the local coordinate system. So you need to go back to this transformation. Once you get global values, you need to go back to this and find what is D1, D2. Okay, so all that we'll make use of in solving plane truss problems. One example is given here and all the details are given here. I suggest you go through that, work out, and then verify whether the details are correct or not, and also you please try to see the various steps. Okay, so this is a simple 2-member plane truss that is taken. Plane truss in the sense of truss which is in the plane of this board. Okay, so you can see here, based on the information that is given, you can easily find what is length of each of the member. Okay, read the problem statement. Find the axial forces, nodal displacement for plane truss. Assume cross-sectional area for element 1 1000 mm square, element 2 1500 mm square. E is given in GPa. GPa is nothing but you can convert into Newton per mm square. So everything is given as SI units. So before you proceed to solve this kind of problem, you need to number the nodes. You need to number the nodes properly. So this node number, this is numbered as node 1. and this is numbered as node 2, this is numbered as node 3, and this is called as element 1, this is called as element 2. Okay, and if you want to see the effect, let's say I number this as node 2, I number this as node 2, this as 1. What is the implication of it? You can easily redo all the calculations and try to get that feel yourself. So at node 1, what are the global the displacement components in the global coordinate system? U1 V1. At node 2, U2 V2. At node 3, U3 V3. And for element 1, this is first node, this is second node. For element 1, local coordinate number is matching with global coordinate number. For element 2, this is node 1, this is node 2. So for element 2, global local node 1 is same as global node 1. For element 2, local node 2 is global node 3. And also you need to also see which is your first node for this element, second node for this each of the element. For this element, this for element 1, this is first node, this is second node, because orientation is going to depend on that. For element 2, this is first node, this is second node. All this information you need to clearly make a note. Once you have all this information, then only you can find that angle, okay, angle between that member and global axis. You do all that properly, detailed calculations are given here. You please go through this. Then these are all self-explanatory, okay. That's why it is written, it is noted here. Element 1, from node 1 to node 2. I am saying for my element 1 is going from node 1 to node 2, not node 2 to node 1. My element 1 is going from node 1 to node 2, not the other way. And based on whatever equation that I have shown you, you should be able to easily cross-check this one. For element 2, I am assuming element 2 to go from node 1 to node 3. Element 2 is going from node 1 to node 3. So this is local node 1, this is local node 2. Based on that, my angle is going to be that whatever this whatever I'm noting that has a bearing on the that has some bearing on the angle that comes in here. So you need to clearly note that. So write the element equations for element 1, element 2. And now in this particular case, there are 3 nodes. At each node there are 3 nodes in this problem. At each node there are 2 unknowns. So total number of unknowns are 6. So final global equation system is going to be 6 by 6. And node 1 contribution goes into 1 and 2 locations. Node 2 contribution goes into 3 and 4 locations. Node 3 contribution goes into 5 and 6 locations. For a 2D truss problem, you make a note. For a 2D truss problem, ith node contribution goes into 2i minus 1 and 2i locations. For 2D truss problems, ith node contribution goes into 2i minus 1, 2i locations. Node 1 contribution goes into 1 and 2 locations. Node 2 contribution goes into 3 and 4 locations. Node 3 contribution goes into 5 and 6 locations. And now, what is element 1? Element 1 is connecting nodes 1 and 2. Element 1 is connecting nodes 1 and 2. This node 1 is the local node 1 and this node is local node 2. So now, where the element 1 contribution goes into the global equation system, it goes into 1, 2, 3, 4 rows and columns. And also 1, 2, 3, 4 locations in the global vector, global force vector. And where element 2 contribution goes, for element 2, this is local node 1, this is local node. So element 2 contribution goes into 1, 2, 1, 2, 4, 5 rows and columns, and element 2 contribution to the force vector goes into 1, 2, 4, 5 locations in the force vector, global force vector. Okay, so keep that all that information in mind, and then you got the element equations, and this is the global equation system. You please check, and please see here, this point is fixed, this point is fixed. That means u2, v2, u3, v3 are zeros. So substitute all that information, and finally reactions are going to be developed wherever you make the displacements equal to 0. And then do partitioning of matrices. When you do partitioning of matrices, you end up in getting 2 by 2 equation system. Solve for u1, v1. Once you solve for u1, v1, u2, v2, u3, v3 are zeros. So you can determine the local displacements and calculate strain, stress, axial force in each of the members. And if the value turns out to be negative, it is going to be compression. So I'm going to stop here because time is running out. You please go through all this, okay? Okay, thank you. One second, let me take attendance. Okay, thank you.
Sir, where
Yes.
to submit the assignment, sir?
Huh?
Where to submit the assignment, sir?
You solve, if you had solved all the problems using pen and paper, you scan all those sheets and then put it in. If this file is too big, you can put it in a zip. You can zip it and send to my email ID. Whatever email you are getting, SMail from SMail, you send to my SMail. Okay.
Okay, sir.
You are getting all the recorded video lectures, all those things. So the same email ID you reply.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.